Southerners.
At
Yeah.
the town
And
council.
the nurse itself is very good.
Dickens, yes, that's a nice Dickens.
Quite big.
Oh, it is.
Yes,
Northern.
that means, and the SBS commissioner in the back, so.
In the
It was
middle is.
historic time, I know folks are looking around saying, what is that? But great, I got,
Oh,
thank you, folks, and good afternoon again. Apology for the little delay, that's but Dr. Thank you and Dean Rowe, for the opportunity to put this panel together. This is, as you know, our 13th year, next year, the 10th, depending how you put it together. The focus is really, and I thank Dr. Dean Rowe said it took what, how many years, Dean Rowe, to get this partnership?
2 or 3 years.
2-3 years from across the Atlantic with London, and we have folks today from, is it 17 countries? 17 countries, right? Subject matter experts, they're all in the academy. And what they do, the conference, this is every year, is that, and we just heard from David, great presentation, by the way. You know, I was listening to the fraud issues over there in London across we have folks from London, we have folks from India, I have folks from South Africa, from Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, on and on. But again, they take that experience back because they're fascinated how we do things here in New York. I think I was speaking to Kenya, and Kenya said, you know, people are amazed because they don't have a lot of these same programs and initiative, right? So today, what would have assembled is a great panel of subject matter experts. As you can read it, I won't waste much time on in there. Please read their background. Sandra Wilkins is certainly the CEO of Bradford Construction, years in the industry in this space in advocating for women organization in the construction field, Women Builders Council. You know, can you imagine a Women Builders Council? Imagine the challenge with men saying you can't build on there. And then Kenia Abreu, Dominican American woman who is the president of the Women's Chamber. Is there another women's chamber, Tanya? I don't believe so here in New York, right? This is it, right? With
This
you?
is it.
This is it. This is it.
City and state.
City and state, you know, advocating, Dr. Data and the role for, and Professor Crump and Professor Zanzibar for women. For women to have a role and have a space. And we really couldn't do this without Ms. Neil Rock, who's a banker, right? And she's years of experience, if you look at her credit in lending and having that opportunity. One of the things I've always said to Dean Rowe is that, and Mike, I call myself on the faculty as a member here with a law degree, not a PhD, that I'm a practitioner. One of the things when I get in my classroom, I teach from experience, right? I don't pull out a book that some theory, no disrespect to the PhD, somebody did 5 years ago quoted. Whatever it is that I teach in my subject matter is real life experience that I've done. So today, these are real life experience that these women will share with us. I'm gonna ask each of them to spend 2 to 3 minutes talking about your background, your role, like I said, and then go into it. There's some questions that we have, but the premise is financing. How do women, Professor Crump, get access to capital, financing? What are some of the challenges that affect them? And us here in the academy is our role, right? To provoke thought, to look at leadership, to figure out how we can do that. President, that is a photo that I said I was gonna mess with the vice chair of the board with when we signed local law into effect. That was one of my proudest pieces of legislation, making change to create opportunities for minority contractors, minority businesses in the city that was never done before. And it makes me specifically feel proud as an immigrant from Panama to be here to come and make this change happen in the country. And we continue, right, to build and all of these local legislation. But till today, everybody still works from local one. And more importantly, I was on leave of the Medgar. So President Ramsey came from a Medgar Evers student in terms of that, a student and then a faculty member who was on leave. I will ask the vice chair of the CUNY Board of Trustees and CEO of Bradford Construction to open up and share some of her thoughts and her experience with us. And then we'll go to Kenya. I don't think we need to You have the questions on there, we can work it from there. So please, let's get a round of applause for these.
From Professor Mayers. It's an honor to be here, an honor to be here with Dr. Ramsey, being here at Medgar Evers College and being part of a community that is City University of New York. Have the honor, as Greg had mentioned, a board member and vice chair of the Board of Trustees. And it is just the community itself and an opportunity to be here for all of the activities that are going on and what a conference that is bestowed. So thank you, and Dr. Rowe, for making this opportunity possible. And just, can I ask, yes, how many are are members of the Medgar Evers family here, or CUNY, or have a relative that is from CUNY?
All right.
Yeah, you can, right, you can,
Yes.
and you can go any place in the world and you will find members of the CUNY family.
Absolutely.
And it is, whether or not you're shopping, in parts of, in Europe where you will see people on, in the markets, parts of South Africa. Had an opportunity to meet an alum who happened to be Queen Diana of South Africa, who graduated from now the College of Stanley. And so it is, so we all understand
Yes.
the importance of the connection and what it is to be. So thank you for allowing me to be here today as a
My pleasure.
as
And you Queens College, you Queensborough, is someone from Queens,
Yes, yes.
Queensborough or Queens? Queensborough.
Sure.
Okay.
My friends from McKissick and McKissick.
Yes.
Just so in the community of minority and women and small businesses here in New York, and I'll let Quenia talk more about that, which she is the expert on it as far as I'm concerned, in terms of what is done for minority and women-owned businesses, and how going forward that relates to the educational imperative that we have to make sure that we teach to the students the curriculum that is so necessary in the future is to be in business and what it is to the financing of building in the building industry in New York in that case. But just to get an understanding of what, and I'll leave you with that, about women entrepreneurs, is that nationally in the country, 42% of all businesses are women. And 13 million employed and 9.4 million in workforce, which equals to about 1.9 trillion annually. Reason I say that, these are good numbers in terms of where women are, but the opportunity of making sure in terms of employment, that is something that is where we need to make sure that we focus on, because with the businesses though, the 9.4 million versus 100 million in workforce in New York. But for New York State, we have the best laws and continuing to be the best laws for minority and women businesses. And you can talk a little bit about that later.
Yep.
And 98% of all businesses in New York are considered small, which is pretty much where women and minority firms still are. And we can have discussion. But once again, thank you for the honor of being here and the conference. And just look forward to hearing from my little colleagues that are here today.
All right, thank you for that.
And thank you, Sumi Gregory, for the invitation. We sit together, in Sandra, myself, in the Diversity Advisory Committee of School Construction Authority, and have a long history of advocacy in the city of New York on behalf of our women and minority business owners. It's always great to share the space with you.
Thank you for agreeing.
Always. And thank you, President Dr. Nancy, for the invitation, also for having us here. And happy to join this conference and spend time with all of you. When Professor Marius told me that many of you are coming from other countries, I'm always interested in also hearing from you as to what is happening out there when it comes to women, particularly women entrepreneurs. I am, the president of the New York Women's Chamber of Commerce, and as Professor Mary said, we are the only women's chamber of commerce in the city and state of New York. I founded the organization in 2002. And we started the organization because at that time I was the director of the Women's Business Center for the Hunts Point Economics for the Bronx, and then later for Queens.
That's right.
Yes. And one of the things that will always tell women was to go and join trade organizations, associations of commerce, so they would network with others, right, and learn and do business with each other. And they will come back and say, we went, but the majority of those associations and chambers of commerce are primarily male-oriented. It's mainly men. Yes. And we don't feel that it's catering to us. I really thought we had a women's chamber of commerce because I have been at conferences in other states where we have the chambers of commerce, and I said, no, that cannot be possible in New York, when we have so many women entrepreneurs, that we don't have a chamber of commerce. And did some research, find out that we didn't, and so I started one with a group of other women, because that's what we do here in New York,
That's
right? If it's not there, we go to start one. Yeah. That is one, and I've always said, I hear, everything that is happening now in New York, and, some of the negative stuff and this and that, and I always come back to the reason why I love being in New York. In love with New York City, why I'm in love, especially New York City. And New York State, yes, but my love affair is with New York City. And as an immigrant, I came here when I was 11, and my parents came here like many immigrants to seek better opportunities, better economic opportunities. And I had traveled the country, and yes, there are a lot of resources and things out there, but no place like New York. When it comes to resources for small businesses, when it comes to support for small businesses, especially for women and women of color, there's no place like New York. We're not perfect, because we're not perfect. But one of the things that I give a lot of props to New York, and that I'm very proud of, is that New York is a place that listens. So when we come, right, and we stand at the steps of City Hall, and we demand fair and equal opportunities, they listen. Because they have to, and they do. And that's how we do it here in New York City. And that's how we have been able to advance, and that's how we have been able to get legislation passed that advances women and minority entrepreneurs. And as I said, we're not perfect, we're not totally there yet, but we have made some amazing progress. And we continue to do so. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about the financing aspect, because that's the real deal, right?
Well, thank you very much, Professor Myers. And thank you, Dr. Ramsey and Dr. Roll, for, first of all, bringing this panel together, this beautiful conference. I've been an observer and a participant in the conference over the years.
Yes.
And I'm always very pleased to see the breadth and the wealth of information that you bring to our international community. And thank you so very much. We certainly appreciate that when you bring it here to New York City and applaud you for that.
Yes, the Big Apple, right?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Nia Rock, and I'm with BankUnited. And BankUnited is a relatively small bank. Actually, I get teased because I've been with probably the majority of banks that still exist here in New York City at some point or another. And I've gone from larger banks, larger institutions, such as Citibank, Chase, JP Morgan Chase, Santander, and have been working over the last several years in smaller banks that, we would like to believe are a little bit more nimble and flexible in terms of being able to offer financing to small businesses and particularly minority and women-owned businesses. And I'm a vice president in the community development area of the bank. And banks, by law in the United States, are required to reinvest deposits that are, reinvest deposits into communities where the resources have been drawn. So that's under the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977. And that the CRA, the Community Reinvestment Act, has taken several iterations over the several years. We're kind of in a holding pattern right now because the more recent rulemaking under the Community Reinvestment Act has been put on hold, and that was due to be rolled out in smaller increments over the 2024-25, but fully implemented in 2026, and that is now under fire. I hate to say it, but it's a fact that it is under fire.
It's true.
And it is true that since 1977, we're still trying to find a way to put ourselves out of business. And what I mean by that is not to put banking out of business, but to put the need for an act of Congress to be in place to require banks to reinvest in low and moderate income communities and communities of color, and to also support women and women-owned businesses. So I say all that to say that under the CRAs, the two major tenets of investment are real estate or investment in communities through home ownership and mortgages, and also in small businesses. And I will say that there are some major institutions that are doing major work in this area. But largely, the funding comes not necessarily through direct loans. And the reason I say that is that financial institutions, manage the cost of transactions by the kind of size of the institution, of the company rather, that they're investing directly in. So there is a cost to do business. And also many small businesses need the kind of resources and support that an institution such directly offer. So a lot of the work that's done, and a lot of the work that I do, is through CDFIs or community development financial institutions. And those are financial institutions under the Department of Treasury of the United States, and that focus primarily as their mission to support economic development, to support small businesses and women and minority-owned businesses. And so so I would name a couple of the large banks that are, one that stands out, and many of you are perhaps aware that Goldman Sachs
Oh, yeah.
has an initiative that is now several years old to support 10,000 small, women-owned small businesses. And I can't tell you where they are in their trajectory right now, but I would certainly like to get back to you and let you know more about that. But that's one of the larger initiatives. Citibank is also a large supporter of small business. But I met last week with Ponce Bank. Ponce Bank is a small bank. It again is a community development financial institution. Ponce Bank, and originated in Ponce, Puerto Rico, right? And operates several branches, but they have a very unique focus on supporting women-owned businesses. But that's how, through my work, that a lot of support for small business for women-owned businesses is managed through investments, through grants and other types of investments into these institutions.
Great, thank you so much for that. Thank you for that. Knowledge is power, as you heard from the banker, the financial person. Kenya?
Yeah, I just want to add, thank you for mentioning Ponce Bank, because it has become one of my favorite banks. Because what tends to happen, Ponce is a small bank, and so it's Cargo Bank. The two of them the only two banks owned by minority.
Correct.
By minorities, one by African Americans and the other one by Latinos.
Yes.
And because of that, they really make a big effort to lend to people of color, to lend to small businesses that are owned by people of color. And we saw that during the pandemic. We partnered with Ponce Bank during the pandemic to help the small businesses apply for what was then called the PPP loan, which was the loan that was the funding that was coming through the federal government into the communities, to the small businesses, but it had to be led by the banks. And I have to say that, I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot going on. And because everybody was applying, and the major corporations and the major companies were going to the big banks, of course, and they're the major clients, the small mom and pop businesses were put to the side and were on waiting lists. And we even experienced that as the New York Women's Chamber of Commerce, where we do business with different banks. And who came to our rescue? Ponce Bank. And we work with them, they work with us on helping a lot of the small businesses apply and receive the PPP loan at that time, which was crucial to keep them in business during the pandemic. So, and they are also a CDFI. Yes, they are a CDFI, which makes it a community lending organization. And they are the ones that come in, step in a lot of times with the big banks. Will not lend to our small businesses. And so do organizations like Ascendus, which used to be called Acción USA, and it's called Ascendus. The Business Outreach Center Network, Bond Capital. We have the banks, and this is one of the great things also about that we have some of the resources that we have. We have the banks, and so the banks will lend to bigger companies, but we have they also lend to small businesses, but you really have to meet all these criteria. And I think what happens with the banks that I lend with the big banks, because they have to go through the same process to lend, for small businesses that they have to go through for a major company. It's the same process to lend millions of dollars and to lend 100,000 or 50,000. They'd rather do the million, the $1 million. But we have these other institutions that are funded a lot of times by the banks through the CRA Act to then lend to the smaller businesses that might not be the market that the big banks are looking for. So we have many, and we have also the credit unions out there as well. So we at the New York Women's Chamber of Commerce, we work with all of them. So we kind of shop our clients to the banks and then to the CDFIs, to the other lending organizations until we find somebody that's going to lend to them.
Sandra?
So, with that, and what Kenya had just said is really that with that is the city, New York City and New York State have various loan programs
Mhm.
that are set out primarily to help different agencies and authorities. One in particular is School Construction Authority. And I see that Gregory Glasgow
Yes.
is in the audience
Yes. One of the
here with
BP.
us and is for programs that require that are working on major projects for schools, let's say, or even for MTA for transportation, really have developed actually through the SCA and people under Gregory's leadership
Yes.
have put together loan programs so that the firms who are doing business with the School Construction Authority who build schools, they are responsible for building all of the schools. The lower ed schools, the elementary schools and the middle schools for New York City. And as a result of that, have programs that with the banks, in particular, where they lend the credit for the projects that are currently being performed by minority and if I'm not mistaken, here at Medgar Evers, of course, is an development programs for various programs both for women and minority firms where they can get experience and knowledge on not only on having to borrow money, but what are the requirements with which to do that? Because as we know, and I'm sure that is key, is to make sure that if you are the firms or the individuals are looking to borrow money, they have the knowledge and the experience necessary with which to be able to do that in that case. So that's a focus of an area that at CUNY is very important to make sure that the procurement opportunities, and there are many for minority and women-owned businesses at CUNY, make sure that they also have the opportunity and the scale and the wherewithal within to be able to do those projects financially in particular.
No, absolutely, and that's important because information, knowledge is power. If you don't know, right, all these programs that are available. I want to turn it over to the audience because I'm sure a lot of questions to figure out how things are done from the subject matter expert. But I would just want to close and ask, do you see hope for the next 5 or 10 years for women, small businesses? Sandra, you in the construction industry, Quenia, the chamber president, do you see the opportunities of young women finishing college seeing a viable option to start your business? And then, of course, Ms. Nia Rock, will the banking system be there, access to capital, kind of help them with their financing? Because, you know, hope is important, but the reality is that, as you said, Kenya, these programs and then will the advocacy still be there? So your thoughts in your own space, each of you, yeah.
I think one of the areas that I think are very key that we have here in New York are one are mentor programs at the various agencies, as they said, School Construction Authority, MTA Report Authority. But we also have a legislation that is so key to what small businesses are able to do, in particular, becoming certified. That means that if you are a certified women, you own your business as a woman-owned business, you own your business as a minority-owned business, that in effect, there are requirements, goals for the different projects that the various agencies that we have within the city and the state, that there are goals for firms to be able to work on those projects. And that has been a game changer for New York firms, where the requirement, and earlier on, we were speaking to Dr. Ramsey, right? And Greg was so much a part of it, and Quenia, of course, was that when we first started out, we had 0 goals for women, 0.5% for minorities. I don't think under a microscope, you can see anything that small. So, but it has grown tremendously because under the auspices of chambers of commerce, of being able to bring in other economic abilities in terms of firms that are willing to do business, loans, for instance, to do business with minority and women-owned businesses. And now that is a standard and a requirement for all procurement, that there is a goal, and our goals keep exceeding which is now typically 30%, but some of us feel that it should be higher. I don't know why you feel that way, but in that case. But that the legislation that was put forth was the major difference in what the opportunities are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Quenia. Your thoughts in your space as a chamber.
Yeah, so, thank you, Sandra, for talking about the specifically about making reference to local law, 1, back then local law 129. And I'm gonna say that, the future looks bright for, women entrepreneurs. We've seen the increase in terms of businesses being created, especially after the pandemic. Those numbers went up. I think that when women found themselves at home with their kids and at some point decided that they were not going back to work, that they were going to start their own business, and it continues to happen every day. We see that with the New York Business Chamber. We have our women, our Women's Micro Enterprise Institute, and then we have our NYWCC center as well, where we teach women how to open, how to start, and then grow their business into successful business ventures. And we do that in partnership with the city and the state of New York. The New York Business Chamber of Commerce is contracted by both to provide services, to provide education, support, mentoring, financing to women entrepreneurs specifically. And as Sandra mentioned, we have seen the progress when it comes to women in the contracting space, and that's because we have a legislation in place. That was not the case before that. So this legislation is very important. We have 2. We have the city, which is Local Law 1, and then we have the state, which is Article 15A, that pretty clearly states that a percentage of contracts have to be awarded to women and minority business owners. A percentage of government contracts have to be awarded to women and minority business owners. In the state, it goes across the board. Any entity that has a contract with the state, and that means for-profit, non-profit, schools, municipality, you name it, it has to have MWBE utilization goals. MWBE stands for Minority and Women Business Enterprises. The city also, it said that we're still working with the city to make sure that it's right, includes everyone. And that's what advocates so important in its space. Because everything that has happened when it comes to the advancement of women and minority business owners has to do with our advocacy in making sure that those legislations are in place. And one of the great things about those legislations is that they're not written in stone. they change because we go back and when the legislations are about to expire, we want to make sure that they continue to be in place. It gives us an opportunity to go back, to look at what works, what didn't work, and then make changes to what doesn't work. We have been able to, one of my favorite things, to increase the discretionary award for
Yes.
women and minority business
Yes.
owners. That was key. When we passed the legislation at first, I think it was $5,000,
It was
$25,000, meaning that an agency could just give an award, give a contract for $25,000 without the company having to bid.
Bid.
Now, agencies have the discretion, at their discretion, can award a contract for $1.5 million at the city level to a business, to an NWB company without having to bid. You know how important that is?
Heard that, Professor
Yeah.
Michael?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
and it took us years.
years, yeah.
It took us years.
Years for that.
Yes,
It was my job to get, that was started at City Hall,
Yes.
that was my job to get the legislation passed, to put
yes.
the policy together.
So, yes, so we continue to work. Right now, what is our focus right now? Because we have seen the increase in participation of women, but women of color are still at the bottom.
Yes.
So what is the city focus right now?
This is
To
a big
increase the
thing, yeah.
participation of women of color. Now, I tell people there's nothing against white women. I have my sister here, Sandra, but we're working together because we want all women to have the same opportunity.
Absolutely.
So we work together when it comes to women, and when we see that one of the groups is falling behind, then we're going to push for that group then to increase their participation, because that's what we do. We want to be able to spread the wealth.
Mhm.
There's a lot of money in New York. There's a lot of money in New York, and we want our women entrepreneurs to have an equal opportunity at accessing that wealth. And that's what we work for every single day.
Okay. No, thank you. I think we have 3 more minutes, so I want Ms. Rupp to do 30 seconds, and then I see three hands up. 3 hands up, so.
Well, thank you so much. And Kenya, I do want to thank you for pointing to collaboration, because that's what banks are able to do,
Yes.
is to collaborate with organizations such as yours and also with city and state
Yes.
agencies and federal agencies to identify ways that we can bring more capital, because I think impact capital comes through collaboration. And we would love for it to be one loan at a time. And also, of course, businesses grow one opportunity at a time, but through this collaborative effort. And I just want to point to a conversation that has taken place here at Abreu. So I serve as an industry advisor with the Abreu School of Business. Thank you so much, T-Long. And we've had a conversation about forming the Center for Entrepreneurship Opportunity. And that has to be collaborative. It's not a bank or a single funder funding individual businesses. What the work that you do, and the CDFIs are also doing, community development, financial institutions are preparing, as you mentioned, business owners to be prepared for more capital. So they may get their seed capital through the CDFI or through another source, but they are also being prepared for longevity, to build banking relationships and to have the opportunity. So there's a lot of cross-fertilization and referrals that go on. I do want to quickly shout out to a couple of other CDFIs. True Fund is the CDFI here in New York,
Yes.
and they do have a construction funding program
Mhm.
for small minority and women-owned businesses. And also, you mentioned the Bach Network. Bach Network, that's the Business Outreach Center network, not too far from here at the Brooklyn Public Library, has a collaboration that's led by 2 women of color that provide a lot of training and support services for. These are all programs that are supported through BankUnited. And one last thing that I'd like to mention is that there's patient capital that financial institutions can offer and do offer in the form of what are called equity equivalent investments, EQ2 investments. And so they look like loans, and they are loans, but they also operate as investments because they are not in the forefront of other types of borrowing that organizations are able to make. So as an example, BankUnited recently in New York made an EQ2 investment to Long Island Development Corporation. And that is to help them match funds against a requirement that they have by Empire State Development Corporation to raise a certain amount of funding in order to make smaller loans. And so those are the things that we can do and that we do, and we always look to collaborate. So I look forward to further conversation.
Excellent, excellent. Back to you from my colleague from London. Any woman first? It's a woman panel that did the event before. First option to the woman, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Seeing none of the ladies want you, then Professor Grace from London.
Well, I could be both, I don't mind.
Oh.
I'm from the UK, so fascinating concept. I really mean that, because as a package, that can be easily exported because it's got so much depth and breadth. And to be able to go to City Hall and stand on the steps and expect to be heard, in our country, that will be a disturbance and a breach of the peace. True, but honestly, I'm amazed. But going back to the subject, in its purity, being a small island, we are very much influenced by the migration of professionals from the international subcontinents. And what happens is that international money comes into the UK. The problem we have is that because that is mostly driven by and dominated by the male population, it has regretfully stunted the growth of entrepreneurship and investment in women in business. Now, we don't have an answer for that. But I think what might even give it a chance is to have that business model that you've just come across with would be the ideal starting block and an understanding from a government policy point of view, because I think it's fantastic.
Yeah,
I really do.
yeah, what you're saying is very much what we had the journey to
Right.
start.
Okay.
And with that, we found that incubators,
Oh,
we
okay.
call here incubators, in both here at CUNY and at other universities, where they coalesce, where they come together to learn the curriculum and businesses, in particular for women, and so that they can learn the particular requirements of a particular industry.
Mm.
And they work together with that in mind.
So thank you.
Yes, one of the, this is nationwide, what the government has done also, and I'm talking about include at the federal level, is that, they have also passed legislation looking at how important the participation of women in the economy is to the country, and what would that mean when a woman starts a business and generates revenue and create employment, and how that impacts positively the economy of the United States based on that, because they've done studies about it. the government, and it happens at the federal level, and it also happens at state and city levels, where then they have gone in, the government themselves, and invested in creating programs in partnership with those city and states to bring resources to women entrepreneurs, to encourage women to start their own business. Because in order for you to encourage them, you have to also allocate resources and have the resources there. For instance, the federal government has funds the women's business centers across the United States, including Puerto Rico as well. And that is also legislation that have been passed to allocate the fundings there for women entrepreneurs to have a women business. Women have those resources in place, so if they want to start a business, or just even when women don't think about it, those women's business centers go out and then they educate women and they make them see the opportunities that are there for them. Because I think that it's not that women don't want to start, it's that they sometimes are afraid of, because they don't have the resources and the opportunity. They don't know how to go about it. But once you show them, and once you open the doors to them, to this world, and once you say, you know what, I'm here to help you, there are resources, you're not going to do this by yourself, then they would start a business. So we have those resources. We have the Women's Business Center, we have the Small Business Development Centers that are located in the colleges, that are funded also by the government in partnership with the colleges. So, and it's those resources are available throughout the country. And again, as Neil said, in partnership. And companies come in, like the banks come in and do that. We, for instance, during the pandemic, got a grant from the City Foundation for $500,000 to help the small businesses. And so you have those companies in your country as well. You have some of those banks in your country, and they already know about those resources. And you have, the Coca-Cola, we have applied for funding for the Coca-Cola Foundation to teach women entrepreneurs, to teach immigrant women entrepreneurs how to start a business and help them with seed capital. And the Coca-Cola company is nationwide. So, and we will be happy to help you if you need us to come in and just show you a model. We have done that. We've done it with Argentina, with Chile, with Dominican Republic, with other countries.
Excellent, that's what this is all about. I know I'm up with time, so, thank you. I see the other panel. Sir, 30 seconds, you had a question? I didn't want to, yes.
Yeah, I go quick.
Okay.
First of all, salute to the panel, salute to all the women in the room. If you run a business, a household, just your own life as a Black and brown woman in this country, you deserve an award. With that being said, I'm curious about, I'm thinking about 2020 when there was an explosion in DEI programs and investments and initiatives, and Brother Kassad talked earlier about pleasing promises. I'm curious about, in your observation, how Black and brown women run and own businesses fared and benefited from that, and if not, what opportunities are still there to make good on those commitments or promises.
Well, I'm going to say very quickly that those commitments have not disappeared. In fact, I think they're increasing. And because the importance of small businesses in the United States is huge. So, and as Sandy mentioned earlier in the data, the statistics are that women-owned businesses are a huge percentage of businesses in the United States. And minority and women-owned businesses are just a large percentage. So for commerce to work in the United States, that funding is not disappearing.
As you make an excellent point on what's important, and what is necessary is to have a call to action to make sure that women have the ability that women, especially what we find now, the discrepancy, we're doing a good job, but not enough for women of color. And we see the importance of that, but it's really empowerment and the resiliency and the inclusion of everybody to bring people of communities, women, young children who will be coming through the educational system to know that they have an opportunity here in terms of being and creating their own businesses too, and having the proper curriculum with which to do it.
Absolutely. Let's hear it. Let's see the time clock. Let's hear it for the presentation. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much to